Hey everybody, welcome back. Episode 16, Fast Motor Podcast. Elijah, my dad, Randy. Just us two tonight, which kind of fitting with being episode 16 with us being on because 16 was my playing number. So get right into the old weekly racing update. Speed Tour Sprint Cars at Magic Valley. Casey Tillman, now 2 for 2 in those shows. He won their opener at Meridian and got the win out at Magic Valley this past weekend. All-Star Sprint Cars at Attica early in the week. Aaron Reitzel, who has got a boatload of All-Star wins already, was back and got another win on his 410 season. Going over to Let's Race 2 at Eldora with the USAC Sprints and the Outlaw Sprints. Kyle Cummins and Justin Grant had quite a battle on night number 1 there, trading sliders late. Kyle Cummins came out on top. And then Brady Bacon kind of just set the tone for the field and dominated on night 2 for the USAC guys. And then for the outlaw portion, Rico Abreu won night number 1. They found their first victory lane in some time. He might have won an early one at Florida, but they found victory lane after being pretty close recently. Kind of a high limit show broke out. I think 4 out of the top 5 were high limit guys. And then Logan Schuhart on night number 2 got a win. And then kind of dedicated it to Bobby Allen, which was cool to see them back in victory lane there. Keeping it sprint cars out west, the CRA series was at Central Arizona. They had a 2-night show out there. Ricky Lewis won both. And then the NARC wing cars were at Tulare. Justin Sanders back in victory lane there. Wheeling Modifieds at Seekonk. I don't even know if I say that right. Not a veteran modified guy. I'm new to it. So John McKennedy, he got the win out there in kind of a late race battle with Kopsik, who's been really fast this year. Cars Tour West, Keelan Harvick returned to victory lane for his second one of the year. ARCA race at Toledo, Tristan McKee kind of tangled with Max Reeves early, which resulted in Reeves cutting a tire down, and McKee set sail from there and was pretty dang untouchable. Then going over to Dover, Kyle Busch kind of looked like Kyle Busch of old in the truck series, where he used to kind of come in and dominate. He handled them. He had it covered there, so he was back there. And then a fellow HendrickCars.com paint scheme on the O'Reilly race, Corey Day, late in the race, charging down Justin Allgaier. He had a little bit of a tire advantage, and there was some lap traffic, but got the win at Dover, which is a tough place to go to, and so cool to see him win, obviously. And I'm a fan because I got to watch his whole career. And I like the dirt guys. I root for the dirt guys, so fun to see that. And then the All-Star race, which we'll talk a little bit about, kind of all the ins and outs of what went on there. Denny Hamlin, though, was class of the field, and from qualifying from a spin out when he was heating up his tires in qualifying, setting the pole, and was the fastest car all race, it seemed. I didn't get to watch it, but it seemed like that was kind of the report. I kind of watched via Twitter. I kind of watched through, as Mike Joy calls them out, the keyboard warriors. That was kind of my viewpoint of the race, which was an interesting one. So Dad, we'll kind of get into it. I think we should start kind of talking the all-star race at Dover, and kind of your takes on it.
If you like the race or not, I think what the All-Star race has really become is a true test for NASCAR, to try high horsepower, low downforce, tire degradation, whatever that might be, which was even more of that again. And I know, like, the opposite view could be, well, let them run more, let them test more, let them do. You don't get that many cars on a track for that long, like a weekend. So an opportunity like this is so rare to say, all right, we get the trucks one day, we got the O'Reilly cars the next day, then we've got basically a full cup race, and we can see what these changes do. So I think there's a lot of learning going on as they try to develop again, the short track package. And I think we've seen improvements on the short track package. And a lot of it came because they could aggressively do some stuff at North Wilkesboro last year and really try some stuff out. they were doing things where they were doing 3 to 4 cars testing, but you just don't lay down the rubber and you don't see some of the changes. So I think that's what one thing that happens there, and then you hope a great race breaks out. I did read some stuff online today where people are like, this is like the 90s, like this is back in the good old days, like people liked it and people hated it. So it is Denny. Toyota were super strong. Toyotas were strong. Bubba was really strong until an accident. Reddick was super strong.
Briscoe was fast.
What's that?
Briscoe was fast.
Briscoe was up there. So, you had that, and you really didn't have, William made a play for a little bit for Chevrolet on the early stages, but, Bowman was just outside the top 10. You didn't really have, Austin Dillon was up there, kind of top 10, but you didn't have much Chevrolet presence, so to speak, at all. Carson Hocevar was, out. I think McDowell qualified well, but anyway, so it was what it kind of was just a whooping by Denny Hamlin. He just, and Denny's just good. He's smart. He's got a lot of laps. He knows what he wants in a car, and tire wear situations are going to be an advantage to him. He knows what he needs in a long run.
Yep.
And he knows how to communicate that. And, Chris Gale obviously is very good. He did, he's had a lot of success with a lot of drivers. And then you put him with the veteran status of Denny, and they're going to be really strong. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. It looked like kind of an old school, like the 90s. Like this group had it figured out, and that's how it was. And you saw a lot of that in the olden days, and you had the tires wearing and cars losing drivability and all that kind of stuff.
I liked it in the aspect that you had a short run car with Briscoe and you had a long run car with Denny. And
I didn't get that from not being able to watch it. So
yeah, so Briscoe would take off, he could run, he'd get that 10 to 15, 20 lap mark, and then Denny was just better, and off he would come, and he could sit and wait and bide his time, knowing that his long run car was going to come in, and did so. And Reddick was a little bit the same. He's typical. He can go up high, he can find momentum, and find some speed.
Yeah, I think the general consensus about it is that the race product was good. They tore up a lot of crap, but the race product was good. A lot of the negative I saw was kind of regarding the format and everybody being there, and it was so long and just kind of stuff. And the All-Star races evolved a lot as it has been. And my 2 cents on it are either go back to a true All-Star race that has very specific criteria and you want the stars in it, or completely open it up, go to a local short track and run a short track night. I was talking to my mom the other night, and she was like, it would be interesting to see what they would do if they ran it like a high limit format, where they have to qualify, and then you qualify and sets you in a heat race, and then this many from the heat race advance, and run short heat races, like run them on a short track night. And that probably wouldn't do well with TV ratings and probably wouldn't ever work. I'd like to see it, but I don't think that'll ever happen.
Didn't they do that a couple years ago in North Wilkesboro?
Yes, but like what I loved about North Wilkesboro is it was a week. It made this week where they had late models and modifieds. I think it was just late models, but they had the Cars Tour, Pro Lates, late model stocks, and Super Lates. The Southern Super Series, the ASA, was there, and it kind of was this build up, and then they had the trucks, and then the All-Star race, and they ran heat races. It was like 4 heats, and then they go to the Open. But they're running 25-lap heat races. That's not a heat race. That's not a heat race. If you're going to run a heat race, run a sprint, 8 laps, and nobody wants to do it. None of the teams want to do that. But I want to see it. I want to see these guys run on a short track kind of night of where you got to qualify and then your heat race. And make them go, if you want to go run a dash and do the redraw wheel that High Limit does. Like, I don't know, do something weird. But I think that NASCAR also they've got this roving. I also hated that the All-Star race was a day race, but that's just a preference thing because it's under the.
It was a morning race here. Like it was on early.
Yeah,
and it was right against, to be honest, and something that you completely missed is qualifying for the Indianapolis 500.
Yep.
And it was right against that. Like I was flipping back and forth, which I hated to. You want to take in the last day of qualifying for the 500 and really watch it. And I wanted to see the All-Star race, and you had to bounce back and forth. So any commercial, they lost me, and I went to the other one and watched, and then until that commercial. So
that's why the Saturday night was beautiful because it didn't conflict with anything. I wanted on that Saturday night for a lot of that reason. I mean, because we're starting Speed Week, which is the best week in racing right now. But yeah, you're having this kind of that rival and it being there. But I think the NASCAR can go, hey, we went to Dover this year and we're going somewhere. We're going to go to something else next year. And if you didn't like it, then we're doing something else. And if you liked it, well, hey, we'll try to keep the same product just at a different venue. And I think that they've kind of given themselves some flexibility with that, which I think is smart on their part and great. Like, I like that there's going to be a little bit of variety with it. I do like that. I don't think it has to be at a set place every year. So that's kind of that. But then, I kind of wanted to we'll segue that into Indy qualifying because, of course, I missed all of that as well as coaching 13U baseball. Looked like there was some interesting storylines. There was no bump for the first time in a while. And then you had some penalties as well. And then a lot of speed looked like Andretti had a lot of speed. Ganassi's got all their
but
on the top or whatever.
Ferrucci's on the front row, I think, for the second time. Was he on the front row a year ago?
I feel like he's been on the front row before.
So, I think you certainly have, like always, I know why they do it. I loved the month of May. I loved getting a recap every day of where people were and people hunting for speed during the 4 to 5 o'clock period of time when the sun went down and somebody wanting to be on top of the charts, and just the month of May. And that's the old school racer, and it doesn't make sense. I get why they don't do it. But it's what made Indy very special, and not just another race. There was an entire month kind of dedicated to this, to the 500. So can't say that I paid as much attention to it. Can't say I could figure out all the qualifying, and I know weather affected some of it. But I think Pelot being on the pole again and finding speed, and anytime you watch those 4 laps when they got to the trying to get to the fastest 6 and everybody putting their laps down, and you saw Rosenquist put a huge number down on the first lap and then just fall off terribly because he was way too loose. And you saw everybody try to fight the balance and find speed and how to use the hybrid, and so it had its interesting stuff. And then some penalties went back and pushed some guys back. I think Catherine Legg, qualifying very solidly in the show, and she'll try to run the double, which I think is fun for somebody to be able to do something pretty spectacular and not kind of have I won't say the spotlight, but Larson doing it, NASCAR's primary to him, and it kind of got disrupted 2 years by weather and and then an accident. So there's a lot going on, which is a great week of racing for that reason.
Yeah, and I mean I don't know if it's as much of speed week as it used to be with practice and stuff, but you still got Carb Day, and then you got a racing at IRP this Friday night with the Carb Night Classic, which now has the Hoosier 100 as a part of it, and Little 5 on Saturday, and there's a whole bunch out west. Paris will do their salute to Indy, and with the CRA guys. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of racing this week as we kind of gear up for it, which is, Sundays. This coming Sunday, the Sunday before Memorial Days, one of the best days of the year if you're a race fan. So
yeah, Formula One doesn't start us off this year. They're competing against the 500 in Canada this year.
are they not at Monaco?
No.
Oh, I'd completely missed that.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's just what started the day. You had breakfast and then watched Monaco. Even if you didn't watch another Formula One race all year, you watched Monaco.
Yeah. And it's not really
interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see what it does. I mean, their ratings are global. They don't rely on the US and time zone. It might, I don't know, it can't be better because it's in Canada. So it'd be, it's not going to be better than Monaco was for the European countries, but I'm sure they have more insights and intel than I do, but I really hate missing that.
Yeah, I mean they'll be fine, and I don't, they're clearly they don't really care because they're doing it, and they've figured out how to make money pretty well, so they're doing okay. I won't watch Monaco this year though. I watched it because it was part of that day.
Right.
I think this kind of. I've never been hugely into F1, but I think that the old F1 stuff, the Senna era, like I always found that super cool. I feel like they've really moved kind of off. I've told people because they're like people find out I'm a race fan and they'll be like, oh, you watch F1, and I'm like, no. And what I've kind of realized is people who are like true like diehard race fans aren't generally the biggest of F1 fans. They may follow it. People who really like cars, especially exotic cars, are F1 fans.
Yeah.
It's more of a car person motorsport than a race fan motorsport, just based on interactions that I've had.
Yes. It's strategy, technology, the extreme of all.
Yes.
So, it's extreme of what the drivers go through and what they prepare for. So,
totally different style.
Very different.
It's very different. So, but yeah, and it's like Monaco's where I used to be like, oh, Monaco. Now it's like I don't know, and I don't follow F1 enough to go. It just kind of feels like another F1 race. Then it feels like this is Monaco. Yeah. I'm sure for those guys, it may be different, but I don't know. I don't follow it as much. I probably should follow it a little bit more, just so I'm more educated as I talk about it.
There's a lot of racing to watch.
There's a lot of racing to watch. But kind of, it will be kind of shorter in this episode. But what I kind of wanted to get as we get into is we're talking about May. You got to experience firsthand the month of May in Indy, race in USAC, and recently resurfaced a video or surface. I don't know about resurface because I've never seen this video of your run at Indianapolis, getting up to speed. Talk a little bit about both the beauty of the month of May in Indy, and being around that scene back when that scene really was a realistic thing for drivers to achieve, and then a little bit about the video and your run to try and make that start.
So I'll go back a little bit. 1996 when I tried to qualify probably wasn't at the height, right? It was a rebuilding of it. Kart had ran, and then there was the separation, and so Indy didn't. When I first went back to Indianapolis to live in 94, I guess it was, that year at Indianapolis, going to see the 500 was just amazing. Like, you'd run into people jams. There were so many people there, 400,000 people there. And it was the whole month. Like, every radio station was out there. Every news station did their live reports from the Speedway. ESPN was had a daily show that checked in. So I mean, you got up. I mean, I got up and went to the speedway every day to walk the grounds. And, I don't know what I really thought I was doing, but, I wasn't shopping for a ride because then, we were out of that era where not many drivers from the USAC ranks were getting a shot at the speedway. It solely became, money and sponsorship as, it's found its way all across racing now. But you still went there. And the crowd, people went there for qualifying, and the crowds were big for qualifying, probably 100,000 plus. Like, it was crazy. It was just part of the city. The whole city just revolved around that. And then it began to die off. And then in 96, it was a little bit of controversy because Tony George started the IRL, and, they were trying to do more, short track drivers to have the opportunity to go. And so I was one of those. Johnny Caples of USAC really pulled a lot of strings to get me in with McCormick's. I went for that first weekend. The first time I ever drove an Indy car or a rear engine car was at the Speedway. So I remember coming off pit road and, starting to accelerate down the back straightaway. And I'd probably driven with as much power. A sprint car had as much power, but that had gears. And so when you could start going through the gears and getting up to speed, that was the first time I ever felt like set back in a car and pushed back in the seat, where it was like, wow, this is really, really impressive. Immediately ran, I think I ran 196 miles an hour, like on third lap, and car drove really, really well. And so I came in and they changed tires, did everything, filled it with fuel, and then I went out. And then the way you do rookie orientation program is you have to stay within like a 10 mile an hour window of, they give you these segments. So I think I had to run between 180, 185, and then 185 to 190. No, 185 to 190, 190 to 195, and 195 to 200 would be the first three segments. And so I went out and ran my 10 laps, and they're like, you're good to go. Like, do you want to go stay out for another 10 laps? Because you had to run 10 laps in that period. So they must have been 5 mile an hour increments. And I'm like, yeah, I'm good to go. And so they're like, well, and so I ran my next 10 laps, and they're like, hey, if you're good to go, we can run 30 laps. Like this fuel run, like run the whole series. I'm like, I'm good. Begin to pick up a little bit of understeer in the car, at a little bit more speed. So, it's running right at 200 miles an hour. It's funny because that doesn't sound like much. I mean, in that situation, but if 200 miles an hour is a football field a second. So think of looking out at a football field and seeing a car go by in 1 second. That's how fast you're going. So, it's still no room for error, but the car drove incredibly well. It was a 94 Lola Buick, a 94 Lola Ford, and drove well, responded well, a lot of steering input. Like, I knew right where the car was at. And then I had to go later that day and drive for my fourth session, which was over 200. We ran 215. I was being able to catch toes off people. We had a lot of downforce built in the car, so it was very stable, and got my rookie orientation. At that point, Lynn St. James was kind of deemed to drive that car. It was the Spirit of San Antonio, Lifetime television channel for women was on there. So Lynn took that car over. She did not like my setup. Lynn really wanted the car to drive itself into the corner and kind of like stagger, would turn the car. Not that it was stagger, but how she would like release the wheel. She wanted feedback on the wheel going straight, and then the car to release and go through the corner. Lynn's, a veteran there, and I wanted to steer the car. So then I went to the backup car, and the backup car wasn't ready for the first weekend of qualifying. I think Lynn got in immediately. She ran, 220 something and got in the show. The first weekend goes by, no car. I think finally Friday or Thursday it showed up, and we had rain. And so couldn't get in the car. And then rain again, and then rain again. And that's, how I met my very good friend Jerry Punch from ESPN. He would come and interview me. They had lots of time to fill when there's no cars on track. So Jerry would chat with me, and I got to know him. So finally we got on track, and I got the car, and at 184, the car was not fun to drive. Like it wasn't in the turbo for the V6, because that car was a year older car with a turboed V6. It wouldn't. You have to get within a speed for the chassis to push itself down into the ride heights. So it's not going to be comfortable because it's not going fast enough to get into its comfortable position. So battling through that to get there is not comfortable. Getting the gearing right, so your turbo is right, all of that is like a synchronized little machine. And we weren't finding speed. We weren't finding speed. I mean, we were getting faster, but not anything that was to get us in the show. Found out we had a bad pop-off valve, found out we had some other changes we'd make. And so by the time Sunday came, we were starting to gain speed and find it. And finally we went out, and the lap before the crash you saw, I'd ran a lap at 228. I only needed to run a lap at 221 to make the field. So we'd found speed. Now, what I didn't know, just because of lack of experience, if it didn't have a little understeer in it, that meant it was loose. And that car turned really well and drove really well. And I think I was the fourth or fifth car to crash in turn one. Billy Boat crashed. He was super fast, front row maybe, but just running laps, and crashed. Danny Drynan broke his hip. He crashed in turn one. Somebody else. I mean, that year Scotty Brayton was on the pole. He crashed during practice and lost his life. So the wind was treacherous in turns one. And watching that video, what's really interesting is, it was very late, and it kind of got a little bit loose. You could see it get a little bit loose, kind of at the apex of turn one, and then it kind of set. And then when it went, it snapped like a quick snap, almost like something broke. And truthfully, I mean, when it went, I tried to correct a little bit because it was just a natural reaction from what I came from. And then I closed my eyes, waited for the hit. And when it didn't happen for so long, because it spun for so long, literally I thought I'd probably just died and was, waiting to the end or heaven. And I opened my eyes, and I was going parallel with the wall, but I had the wheels turned so that it went back into the wall. If I would have straightened them, I'm not for sure we wouldn't have saved it. Then I'd have had to probably keep driving it, and I don't know that I wanted to. It wasn't it just wasn't a comfortable car. It wasn't, and those cars had a rear suspension in them that was a little bit interesting anyway. That car was built for an Ilmore engine, not the Buick. So there's a lot of geometry changed, and the car ended up finding speed later in its life in some the American IndyCar series or something. But and then on my you go back, we didn't have cell phones, but we had pagers. My pager was going off for me to go jump in a car on pit road. I wished I would have done it because the car just barely missed the show, and I think I could have got it in the show, which would have been amazing to be one of those 33 starters just once. But we really thought I was coming back to next year. We had Bryant Heating and Cooling that we were trying to go. I'd be with Jonathan Bird. There'd be a better car. Like, there was just a whole plan. And I really thought I'd be in the IndyCar. So I didn't want to tarnish my reputation and getting in a car I hadn't even driven yet and trying to get it up to speed. So that was the month of May. And then, and my story is like so many back in that era where there were so many cars trying to make it. And, everybody gave it their all. I bypassed basically my salary for that month because I didn't run the Silver Crown race the night before. I didn't do things because I wanted to concentrate on this. And, so guys bring all the money they can. They do everything they can to make that month of May. I mean, that's why when the bump day was so dramatic, because it was everybody trying to make that race. So, it was a real letdown. I think we left after crashing, and we went, and your mother and I went to the hospital to see Billy Boat because his wife was there there was no other family support for her. And your mom felt that we should be there to offer support. And so that's where I spent, the evening of not making the race. And then it came race day, and we were entertaining sponsors. I ran the sign for Lynn St. James. So between the pit wall and the racetrack, I had the big sign out front for whatever 2.5 hours out there with just waters and snacks to go on the race. But the start of that race, when the three came by and you're standing in the middle, is a pretty dramatic moment. So glad that I got to do it. The Speedway is an amazing place, as you will know because you will go. It's just, you walk in, it's hollowed ground. Like it only a few tracks are like that is like just it sits there on its it's huge. You drive by the grandstands for a couple blocks, and it's just famous for that speedway. So this the month of May is special, and Doug Bowles has done a miraculous job of bringing it back to the forefront of Americana, so to speak. Making it a destination, making it a place and a race people want to see and fall in love with, and his enthusiasm and passion has just been remarkable, of what he's done with the Speedway.
He has done phenomenal things because he blends the tradition and the history and all of the things that have historically made it great, and he's tied the new stuff in. He's made it exciting for new fans to kind of want and go, and then he's gotten the attention grabbers for those, and then they can see that tradition and stuff that's always been there. Like he's just blended that so wonderfully, which I mean, it was always going to be on my bucket list, but it's just even more so on my bucket list, which next year, hope is the plan and the hope that I get to go. When I go, I'm going to the carb night and going to the Little Five and going to Indy. And just that weekend is, I mean, it's magical. Right?
Yeah. The only sad thing is they don't run the Indiana Fairgrounds, but
I know. But IRP's on my bucket list because you won there, and they run midgets, and they'll run Silver Gun. Yeah, it sucks that the Hoosier 100 is not on.
I think the Holman is before the Speedway. Hoosier was later in the year. I think
Hoosier was always later in the year, but they've moved it now to kind of up the carb night deal. Which if it's not going to be at the fairgrounds, I think it's fitting.
Yeah, I do too.
So
it's not going back to the fairgrounds. It was just a track I really loved too. So
well, I mean, and it's so historic, but it's never gonna go. It's gravel now, so that's unfortunate, but it's is what it is. We move forward. But that was kind of all I had to touch on tonight. Kind of prepping for Indy, and getting ready and to one of the best weekends of the year for racing. So
there's a lot going on in the sport. We talk, you talked about Rico winning, the high limit versus outlaws. There's that rivalry is kind of real, right? Like you have fans are rivals, you have the drivers that are a little bit rivals, and I think there's a great respect, but they're wanting to win for their group. It's kind of like you're representing your school and you want to win for your school. Even though you're independent teams. So you have a lot going on. You have a little bit of a rivalry with ARCA, with the Reeves and the Tristan. So I think that's healthy. It's good for that sport to have that. And then you really get into the swing of the year right now with USAC. This is a kind of a kickoff weekend for a lot, and then the midgets. I think sprint or midget week comes up not too far down the pathway.
And sprints will pick up as well.
So it's it's a great weekend, but it's I really, just as we watch and look at it from such a different perspective of this, of really trying to look for the positives in the sport, it's a really good place right now. Like there's a lot of great racing and great racers coming up, and it's interesting with Reitzel, I don't know, I would say dominating high limit, but he's pretty stout. And then Corey Day to do what, I think the most remarkable Corey Day story is, one, he continues to win on dirt. When he goes, he's a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But number two, he started out this year and it wasn't pretty. Like, he had fellow drivers upset at him. He had to get set down by his team to say, you need to learn how to race as a teammate, and race hard, but find your balance. And he did it immediately. Like, his response to that was, from a spectator was so immediate. And then to win, and now he's won 2 in the last 4 races or something. So he's done a really good job. And there's a lot of rumors that are getting really strong, it sounds like, about him stepping in the 48. And my immediate thought is, wow, that's fast. But it also is a very different car. And
yes.
So, that will be a new learning curve for him, because that's a sim related type of situation. It's not, he, like Carl Larson, have just a feel, and they know how to find an edge and put a car to the edge. And, I was kind of thinking back, Kyle was so good early on with this car, because I think that natural ability of him to find that edge, was very good. Mm-hmm. And now there's so much sim work being done. There's so much setup work being done that way, which he's admitted he doesn't like it. He doesn't do it near as much. He's not involved in the setup stuff as much.
And he doesn't know it.
Huh?
He's kind of admitted his ignorance a little bit of, like, he doesn't know the language. He doesn't know the.
Yeah. And so you just really wonder. I just don't know. I mean, William's the sim guy, and he's not.
Sim racing.
So, and Alex was, and Alex came back pretty good, but, that's what he did at Hendrick before he got the ride, was the sim work. So they're just missing a piece, and that's not to take away from Kyle Larson. He's a phenomenal talent, right?
Yes.
But you begin to think of, like, you begin to question, and I'm sure they're questioning, and I'm sure he's questioning. I don't care who you are as a race car driver. If you're not winning in a year, you're starting to wonder what's happening. And rightfully they should. They're too good an organization not to be winning, races, a lot of races. So.
Yeah, and they've only got one car that's won.
So he'll win this weekend, because you and I, every time we start questioning anybody.
Yeah, as soon as I remember vividly, and this is for kind of all the listeners, vividly talking, you were like, gosh, I worry about Ryan Blaney's career. This was years ago. And you're like, he finds a way to finish races. He's just not winning. I'm like, yeah, he's in the top 10 every week. He's got speed, but yeah, they just haven't found victory lane. And I think that season, it was at the beginning of the season. I think that season he ended up winning the most races he's ever won that year. And since he's since been a champion, and it was like jump started his cup level.
I think he owes us his career.
I think so too. We talked about
his resurgence. We had CV a couple years ago, where we were talking like.
Yep, we did have CV a couple years ago.
Yeah.
As soon as we doubt somebody, they win. So, Kyle Larson, when you win the championship this year, Yeah.
I thought it would be fun for you to do the questions.
The rapid fires? All right.
Yeah.
Do you have them?
No, you're going to have to do them yourself.
All right, I'll do them myself. Let me pull up the list. I should know them by heart by now. I probably do, but so I don't forget one. Here we go. All right. Favorite track is Meridian Speedway. I'll give 2 answers for my favorite track. Meridian Speedway, it's home. Grown up there, the nostalgia. I can go there and immediately be a 7-year-old kid that was sitting in the grandstands with a licorice rope and a Mountain Dew and rooting for Travis Pavlaki because I liked saying his name. Or any car with flames on it. And to go and see, and now I get to, as I've grown up around, I get to appreciate it as a racetrack and how racy it is and the show that they put on. It will always be home. It will always be my favorite track. But I will say my favorite track to shoot pictures at was Red Dirt Raceway in Oklahoma, in Meeker, Oklahoma. For a couple of reasons. One, those promoters there, the Brewers, they made you feel like they really wanted you at the racetrack. They like if all you had to do to get free admission as a photographer was tag them when you posted your photos. They were like, tag us, here's your free pit pass. Because I bought a pit pass one time, and I'll tell a little story about them. I bought a pit pass the first time I ever went and shot there, and posted pictures and tagged them. And they messaged me on Facebook and said, hey, I remember seeing you at the gate. You bought a pit pass. And I was like, yeah. And they were like, you don't have to do that. And so the next time I showed up at the racetrack, she saw me walking in, and she was like, I owe you money. And I was like, what? And she handed me cash reimbursement for my pit pass. And so I want our photographer. She's like, you guys are here getting exposure and sending our stuff out and highlighting our track. Like, we don't want you to pay for anything. That for me, who was just doing it for fun and because I loved it. And I was, shooting for some drivers and doing some stuff like that, which was great. But like, that made me feel appreciated. And then on top of that, the different angles, because of how unique their track layout was, like it was a traditional wall with no catch fence though in turns 3 and 4. And then turns 1 and 2 had no wall, but a bunch of runoff room and a big hill. And so I could get up kind of on that hill, obviously on the other side of the fence, like it couldn't be in a live track, but behind the fence and like shoot like downhill at cars come in. And that's where the sun would come in, and you could get it bouncing off the cars, and you could get around where the fence ended going down the back. Like there was so many different angles you could go and shoot, and safe ones, right? They were like secure ones. There were some unsafe ones you could go to, but I stay away from those. But like there's so many different angles, and that was my favorite place to shoot of all time. Fortunately, it's closed now, but that was my favorite track to go and take pictures at. My most memorable race as a fan. I feel like I have a couple answers for this. I have 2 because of the quality of race, and I have 1 because of a whole different reason. The 2 in terms of quality of race were the 4th of July late model race, probably 2023 at Meridian. I think 2023, may have been 2022, between Cal Tellstrom and John Newhouse. And they did absolute war side by side for the last 25 laps of the race, maybe more. It felt like it was the entire race. They ran side by side, Tellstrom on the outside, Newhouse on the inside, and just went on absolute battle of who's going to get the edge I think it was a 100-lap race. Might have been a 50-lap race, but I think it was a 100-lap race. And it felt like they did that for the entire race. Like it was. And Emily watched it, and she was super excited during it. And I remember that one vividly because it was just, and Tellstrom ended up getting on the outside of him and able to pin him and got it. And it was just a great race between 2 great Northwest late model drivers. Another one was this year's Turkey Night sprint car portion with Dason Pursley and Caleb Montgomery just throwing haymakers at each other and doing it completely clean. And that race was phenomenal with the Ultimate Sprint Car Series. And we talked about that when we had Melissa on. And then I have another one totally for a different reason. But it was, and the reason it was because it was with Emily's family. So my mother and father-in-law were in town visiting and took them to the Nashville Fairgrounds. And the limited late model race had some drama between the Dishman and his kind of friends and their clan and the Hamlet family, where there was some motor troubles that led to a kind of like a start and park deal. And then Benny Hamlet got taken out and there was a wreck, and the car that start and parked, driven by Dalton Hamlet, pulled out of the pits and proceeded to right hook Jonathan Dishman, who was the point leader, into the backstretch wall. Huge fight breaks out, and I'm there with my mother and father-in-law, who have not been to a whole lot of short track racing, have never been to short track racing in the South, back in the Southeast and late model country. And so watching them experience that, and like, it's kind of Bowman Gray-esque of just short track rivalry of two groups that have had a rivalry for years. that was pretty fun. It was kind of cool to see people who weren't around the sport go into the nitty gritty grassroots of it.
So and they loved it.
And they loved it. Yeah, they both had such a great time. So that was fun. That was another one. Racing hero. As a kid, obviously, my dad. You. Or why I love the sport. Or what got me into it. I never got to watch you race. But I watched dang near every truck race on YouTube and USAC races that are there on Flow. And so racing hero will always be my dad. Best track food. It's tough. I haven't been to a whole lot of tracks.
Yeah, and you're not an exotic eater anyway.
I'm not an exotic eater.
I don't know that I'll hear anybody as excited about the bologna sandwiches last week.
Yeah, no, that was he loved it.
And they do. Everybody does. He was loving it.
He was fired up about it. Yeah, I'd have to go back to kind of my favorite track answer. And this is more of a nostalgic thing of a red vine licorice rope, only from Meridian Speedway, just the big long ones. Because every time I went there when I was growing up, I had one, and I always get one when I go back now, just for nostalgia purposes. So that's what I'll go with. My favorite series to watch. I watch a lot. Dirt, I like the High Limit because of the show that they put on. Winning Sprint Car Racing is gnarly. That's my favorite to watch, and then I love watching the Cars Tour for the asphalt side. I love short track racing will always have my heart. But to watch live, non-wing sprint cars, USAC, whatever. USAC is cool because you got these veterans that really know what they're doing with those race cars, but non-wing sprint cars on dirt anywhere are to watch live are just a ton of fun because you can hear the throttle on off footwork. Those are my favorite to watch live. I don't have a car number. My 16 jersey number was when I was a freshman in high school. Was right when Jose Fernandez, who pitched for the Marlins, had passed. He was number 16. I was number 6. I wanted number 6. One of the coaches had number 6. Another one of the players who was an upperclassman had number 5, which was kind of my backup for Albert Pujols. So I rolled with 16, and then kind of later realized it was a flip of 61, which was very commonly your number, which I thought was kind of cool. That one just kind of stuck. 16 was stuck. I picked it kind of right after Jose Fernandez had passed. He played the game and just had fun with it. And so I just was like, all right. And so we rolled with it. My ultimate goal in racing is just to keep taking pictures, making videos, and just meeting people. I just want to meet. I like meeting people. That's why I do this. And now I'm glad we have a platform that we can kind of talk to these people that I've gotten to meet, that you've gotten to meet. I just like meeting and hearing and talking racing with everybody. So the most people I can meet, and the more people I meet, the more chance I have to impact somebody's life in a positive way. Because ultimately I've got a pinned post on my Facebook of why racing, and it ties into my faith. And if I can reach one person with the gospel message that can change their life, or even just positively impact their life to where they find something over, my ultimate goal in life is to try and bring people towards Christ because I know how much that has changed my life, and I've seen it around people, and I want to see these people in heaven one day. So if I can positively impact somebody, that's what I want to do. Whether that's being up front, with it about ministering to them, or if it's just being kind to them. So that's my ultimate goal. And my favorite hobby outside of racing, I don't know if my job can count as my hobby. I mean, I love the baseball side of thing, but I'd say I don't know that I can count this a hobby either, but spending time with my wife. She's my best friend. So anytime I get to spend with her, whether it's going on a weekend trip, she has multiple times said, hey, is there a race in town at somewhere? Like we're going down to a beach trip in Florida and we might pop on over or in South Alabama, we might pop over. It's about 50 minutes from Five Flag Speedway and Southern Super Series is there. We may pop over there. So we may pop over to a race, or if it's going to Disney or just hanging out, watching movies, hanging out with my wife is my favorite thing to do. So
That's a good thing.
Those are my rapid fire questions.
All right.
Kind of more long-winded, I think, everybody else's. So
not so rapid fire, but they're good.
They weren't so rapid fire, but those are the answers to my questions.
Yeah, I like it.
So yeah, it kind of wraps it up. Yeah, we will be back with a guest next week. Next week might be pushed a little bit. Traveling back to Idaho and get to go back to Meridian Speedway on Monday on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So recording may adjust. Tuesday night actually might be good because I kind of get in Tuesday afternoon. So schedule may change. I'll post it on socials, but for now, every Wednesday morning, Spotify and YouTube. Keep checking us out. Keep writing us. And we look forward to doing it every week.
All right.
See you guys.